Welcome back once again for another SnowRunner truck review. Today we're going to take a look at a free DLC truck, which is the brother to the CAT CT680 with some noticeable differences, as we will see. So before we start, I ask that you please help support the channel by liking the video and subscribing to the channel as well. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump into this and check it out. Before rolling out a new model vocational truck, Caterpillar based the design of the CT681 from hundreds of consumer inputs. In 2014, those critiques went into consideration for design purposes. Very similar to the CAT CT660, the result was a truck built to maximize payloads and work hard in the toughest of conditions while being durable to last for years to come. This vocational truck has a wide array of bodies to apply to its frame for multiple applications. In the game of SnowRunner, the CAT CT681 is a free anniversary DLC truck that seems very similar to a lot of other vehicles in its class. There are some red flags to get over when using this truck, yet it does have some surprising features as well. So before I give anything else away, let's take a look at the base stats. The Caterpillar CT681 is classified as a heavy-duty truck. It weighs 7.9 tons. In its stock configuration, it boasts a power-to-weight of S, a durability of B+, fuel consumption A-, fuel capacity is 260 liters or 69 gallons. It comes with a stock suspension. Its tires also come stock with a 43-inch highway tire. Its all-wheel drive is capable, and its diff lock is capable as well. Alright, let's dive into the pros and cons of the Caterpillar CT681. Per usual on this channel, with the bad news first, opening up our downsides list at the #1 spot, the dead axle. To start the downsides list off right, it behooves me to mention the biggest drawback in my opinion. To put this one very simply, the dead axle is a downside because it's not powered and it can slow progress going over those obstacles as well as traversing through mud. In this review, you might see some downsides that also have some positive features which will be mentioned on the upsides list. Later, we'll talk about how the dead axle can be useful, but overall in most applications, it limits performance. Downside number 2. No raised upgrade and ground clearance. There are a slew of North American trucks that lack the raised suspension upgrade, which in turn provides subpar clearances. It's kind of frustrating that every highway truck in the game now has a raised option, yet other heavy-duty trucks do not. A lot of trails in the game have deep ruts that your tires seem to slide down into. The CT681 will actually have frame contact in those scenarios, and this will slow you down even if they aren't necessarily muddy trails. Lastly, before we move on, both the CT680 and the 681 have what's called the walking beam suspension that has no flex, seems very deflated and stiff. This is evident upon attaching loads or vehicle add-ons. You'll notice that the rear suspension almost has no vertical change when weight is added to its frame. Suspension travel in an off-road game is very important, so that's why this merits it a spot on the downsides list. Downside number 3, tires. In addition to our number 2 downside, the CAT is also plagued with a standard American tire loadout. However, one good thing is it can upgrade its tires from 43 inches to 47 at the player's discretion. Not having a mud tire option or even a heavyweight off-road loadout hurts its ability to grip. Other factors that add to its poor grip quality is coming up next at downside number 4, weight and wheel spin. Even though the 681 trends toward the heavier side of the heavy-duty class, its power output, coupled with being under 10 tons, means it's going to wheel spin quite a bit in those tougher areas. To mitigate this, heavy loads and management of lower gears will allow you to still be effective. Downside number 5, small fuel tank. To make this downside very brief, the Cat's fuel capacity is much lower than I would like to see it. Upon doing my own research, the actual CT681 carries a 100-gallon fuel tank. Despite this vehicle not having a big fuel tank in the game, it still does pretty well with what it's given, as we will learn later, so stick around. Downside number 6, it's very weak at low levels. At lower driver levels, players are very dependent on features like all-wheel drive and differential locking to be effective. The issue with the Cat and some other vehicles that have upgrades dependent on driver levels is that players have to wait till double-digit levels to actually attach these upgrades. The CT681, for example, needs driver level 13 and 14 to unlock the all-wheel drive and differential locking. Personally, I don't think this is a huge deal because of trucks like the Fleet Star and driver levels coming rather easily. However, I did feel players need to know this before jumping into this free DLC truck. To wrap this one up, the Cat is just not a wise choice in the early game due to those driver level requirements. And finally, coming in at downside number 7, terrain limitations. From everything we've covered so far, this con is a summation of our previous performance inhibiting downsides. Like I've mentioned in my Cat CT680 video, this truck also has problems in deeper areas, as well as having the same risk for high centering. The Cat is a powerhouse, and it will give you its best, as we will learn, but just be prepared to break out the winch. Well folks, I am sure glad to be moving on to the good news now. So, here are the pros for the Cat CT681. Opening up the upsides list at the number 1 spot, amazing power, all-wheel drive, and differential locking. Our number 1 upside is not one to be skipped over, and here's why. When this truck was first introduced, I completely dismissed it as another CT680 with the addition of the dead axle. However, upon further investigation, I found that the CT681 has the 6th strongest engine in the game. Couple that powerful engine with a much needed all-wheel drive and differential locking, and the Cat can pretty much pull anything you need via low saddle or on the vehicle's frame. Keep this engine in mind because there are some other aspects about it coming up shortly. Upside number 2, stability. Before we move on and continue to highlight that engine, we have to talk about stability. Like its brother, the CT680, the 681 is also very stable and resists tipping more often than not. I do feel, however, that stability loss comes at higher speeds and rough terrain due to the suspension having very little travel to resist jarring the vehicle's balance. Overall though, I think the Cat can be trusted with balance, just be careful at faster paces with heavy loads on its frame. Upside number 3, unlocked final engine. By now we all know how frustrating it can be to wait around for engine upgrades, but for the Cat, its engine can be purchased at level 1. And yes, this is the top engine upgrade that needs no requirements other than some good old cash. For most trucks in the game of SnowRunner, a common downside is waiting for engine upgrades. For this reason, getting the number 6 most powerful engine at level 1 deserves a spot on this list. Upside number 4, driver level upgrades. Even though you can attach an amazing motor at lower levels, the Cat is heavily dependent on all-wheel drive and differential locking. Now, you're probably wondering why this is also on my upsides list, but stay with me, I'll explain. If we look at the new upgrades that were recently added, it's easy to see they are on later maps. Vehicles like the Dan and the Transtar suspensions, the Dairy Longhorn's new engine, even the Vorongrad's top engine as well, all are much later in the game. When Saber added some DLC trucks, they attached a level requirement to their upgrades. I felt this was such a better idea than going off and hunting down upgrades that are far later in the game. waiting for level 13 and 14 for an all-wheel drive and differential locking upgrade really isn't bad compared to most vehicles. Upside number 5, fuel consumption. The last highlight that pertains to this engine is its economy, of which I am very excited about. Instead of trading efficiency for power, this engine actually improves on both. Yes, the Cat still does have a small fuel tank as we have mentioned, but this efficiency still will allow for long hauls without worry of running out of gas. Upside number 6, dead axle uses. Once again, I repeat, the dead axle is a downside. Yet I have recently discovered it can be useful in some scenarios. This can help stability, especially when there is heavy weight set high on the vehicle's frame. Fuel carriers, logs, and other add-ons make vehicles a little bit more tippy than usual, so deploying the dead axle can help with stability to keep the truck on its wheels. And finally, coming in at upside number 7, it's a free DLC truck. To keep our final upside very brief, in normal mode, this truck is completely free for all drivers as it is part of the anniversary DLC. If you're playing hard mode, it costs about $80,000, but overall, I would like to see more free DLC trucks like this. Alright, so moving on to my personal ratings for this truck. For power, it has the number 6 engine in the game, so a rating of 5 for sure. For terrain navigation, a rating of 2. Although the Cat does okay, those downsides do make things kind of tough in off-road scenarios. Not having all-wheel drive and differential locking until mid-levels and knowing its terrain navigation rating, I felt some new players would find this truck pretty difficult. For aesthetics, in my opinion, it's an awesome looking truck. Stability, in my opinion, is trustworthy, but take note of the considerations on upside number 2. The CT681 has a small fuel tank which hurt this rating, but the efficient engine merits this a rating of 4. The 681 can basically use all the attachments in the game, so I believe this is a rating of 5. Somewhat lightweight, wheel spin issues, and no mud tires equates to this vehicle having below average grip. So in conclusion, the Cat CT681 is so close to being a champion for the North American fleet. I could use this time to complain about the compressed rear axles, small tires, lack of race suspension, and the horrible dead axle. However, I do feel the Cat has become one of my favorites lately. It's really close to being a great truck, and I said the same thing about the CT680 as well, but I believe the advantage is the 681's engine. The Cat does feel like it's held back in some ways, as most American trucks are, yet it has been a breath of fresh air to see some awesome power coupled with fuel efficiency. In truth, you're going to be challenged when using it, but I feel it has enough upsides to make it a pleasurable experience. So in closing, the Caterpillar CT681 would have been just another American truck that struggles greatly, but one thing drivers can get behind is the power and the fuel consumption. The rest can be managed by overall good driving and smart planning. Perhaps in the future, I'll start an all-American hard mode challenge, but until then, try this one out and let me know what you think. I hope this review gave you a fresh, new perspective of the Caterpillar CT681. Please smash that like button. Definitely share this video with someone who is struggling with the game, and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you don't miss any future content. Hope you all have a wonderful day. God bless and stay upright.